So that video that you just saw is a high school athlete, a girl who desperately just wants to compete in a powerlifting competition, being forced to as quickly as possible, have the beads removed from her hair because she was told she will not be allowed to compete until that happens. You can see Tariq Light talking about it in this caption. So the judges said she couldn't compete with beads in her hair. So the other girls, who by the way might be competitors of hers, thankfully were helping her to get those beads out as fast as possible. And the caption ends with saying, wasn't that Crown Act law that was just passed supposed to prevent this? Well, look, of course, the House did pass the Crown Act very recently, like a week or two ago, along party lines, shockingly. Of course, it hasn't actually gone into effect. The Senate hasn't taken it up, it hasn't been signed. But some states do have the Crown Act. And I think this story is a great reminder of why that needs to be there. She has beads in her hair, and that is clearly like a competitive advantage that can't be allowed. What do you think?
Yeah, at first I thought that maybe she might be wrestling, or even like I'm guessing like even in hoops, you might say somebody could turn their head quick and it like the bead could actually poke somebody's eye out or whatever. You could come up with some BS nonsense excuse, or you could just say put it in a ponytail, whatever. I don't know. But once I saw like she's lifting weights, this is a weightlifting competition. Mm-hmm. Like this is just clearly just cultural, racial bias. There's no explanation for this. This is not spirit of the game. This is not spirit of competition. This has nothing to do with gaining competitive advantages. This is just straight up a bias against people's culture, and most, like honestly, is black culture. Like there's no other way to square this thing.
Yeah, it's either outright, I don't like you having your hair that way, or it is complete ignorance about, well, I guess, I don't even know what the implications could be of beads. Let's get them out of there. And look, this is the first athlete who has had to make this sort of choice. Andrew Johnson, a black varsity high school wrestler in New Jersey who had dreadlocks, was forced in 2018 to make a choice: cut off his dreadlocks immediately or forfeit his match. And so again, being put, these are young athletes being put in impossible choices, impossible positions, having to make these choices. And so far, similar legislation of the Crown Act has become law in 14 states, so that's good. We'll see if in practice it actually even helps with this sort of thing. How will judges actually adjudicate it? But it leaves people wondering, like Sergeant Surge asked, does our hair give us magical powers or something? Why are they so afraid of our hair? Someone in the chat speculated, well, it's pretty easy to understand. Her beads would get wrapped around the bar, and then her head would be pulled off when she puts it down. Like, no, this is madness. She had very short hair. The question is, what should be done now? I think the referee needs, at the very least, a talking to, some sensitivity training, perhaps.
Yeah, sensitivity training, public ridicule and shame, embarrassment. Put this man's name and picture on the internet, on TV. This is the idiot who did this. And I do want to go back to the homie who had to cut his dreads off, because again, I don't know if the young kid was a Rastafarian or not, but let's just say he was. Their hair and their religion is very closely tied. Like they literally don't believe that you should take even a razor to your hair. That's their religious belief, much less style it or do whatever. That's tied to their religious belief. And mind you, these are coming from the same people who think a bakery shouldn't have to be paid to make a cake for a gay couple who wants to get married, right? Like, just understand the level of intolerance and ignorance and ridiculousness that we're talking about. This is coming from the people who don't want to say gay.
Yeah,
exactly. Like all basically because of their ridiculous religious beliefs. And this young man has dreadlocks, and again, he might just have his dreads for style. You don't know that when you're asking him to do that. There's actually a religion tied to dreadlocks, and you don't know if this young man is a Rasta or not. And like cutting this guy's hair, man, like that, like it's akin to one of the worst things you could possibly do. And that's why this is just. It's just awful in so many degrees.
Exactly, yeah. And just, it's none of your business. It has nothing to do with anything. And it is like, I understand that rooting out all structural racism, individual bias, and bigotry and all that, that is a difficult thing that God only knows is gonna take hundreds of years. But could we take this off the board at least? The obsession with the touching of, the policing of Black people's hair. I feel like that's the simplest one. And honestly, I understand that maybe you think like but then there would be a hole in my heart where that was, talk about my hair. If you see me on the street, you can touch my hair. You can make me shave my head even shorter before I compete in a sporting event. If you need this, if that's your hobby, I offer myself up as tribute, but leave the other people alone. Leave the high school athletes alone. You don't actually need it.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.